something massive may have just happened for XRP holders, and the entire crypto market is starting to pay attention. For years, people inside the XRP community have waited for one thing that could completely change the future of Ripple, XRP, and crypto regulation in the United States. Now, suddenly, reports, discussions, and growing reactions are pointing toward the possibility that the Clarity Act could finally move forward in a serious way, and many investors believe this could be the turning point they have been waiting for. If this momentum continues, XRP could enter a completely different phase where institutions, banks, payment companies, and even governments begin looking at XRP with a level of confidence we have never seen before. The market is already reacting, social media is exploding, and holders everywhere are asking the same question. Is this finally the moment that changes everything for XRP? The crypto world moves fast, but every once in a while there comes a moment that feels bigger than normal price action, bigger than another market rally, and bigger than another news headline. Right now, many XRP holders believe we could be standing in one of those moments because the conversation around the Clarity Act is growing louder than ever before. For years, XRP investors have watched the market struggle under uncertainty, while regulators continued sending mixed messages about digital assets. That confusion created fear across the industry, slowed innovation in the United States, and caused many crypto companies to look outside America for better opportunities. XRP became one of the biggest examples of that uncertainty after Ripple entered its legal battle with the SEC. And ever since then, holders have been waiting for real regulatory clarity. Now, suddenly things appear to be shifting. The Clarity Act is being discussed more seriously. Lawmakers are becoming more vocal about the future of crypto regulation, and investors are beginning to believe that Washington may finally understand that digital assets are not going away. This is important because markets do not just move on technical charts or hype alone. Markets move when confidence changes, and confidence in crypto has always depended on one major thing in the United States: regulation. Without clear rules, institutions hesitate, big banks stay cautious, payment companies slow down adoption, governments delay partnerships. But once clarity enters the market, everything can begin changing very quickly. That is exactly why XRP holders are so excited right now, because XRP has always been connected to the idea of utility and real world financial use. Ripple did not build XRP to be another meme coin or another short term trend. The goal has always been fast cross border payments, lower transaction costs, and a financial system that moves money instantly around the world. But despite all of that potential, regulatory uncertainty kept acting like a wall standing in front of XRP's growth. Every rally seemed limited by legal fears. Every bullish move was followed by questions about regulation. Even when Ripple expanded globally and formed partnerships outside the United States, many investors still believe the real explosion could not happen until America provided clear crypto rules. That is why the Clarity Act matters so much. Many investors see it as more than just another political discussion. They see it as the beginning of a completely new environment for digital assets. If lawmakers finally create rules that clearly explain how cryptocurrencies are classified and regulated, companies could finally operate with confidence. Investors may no longer fear surprise enforcement actions. Institutions could feel safer entering the market in a bigger way. And XRP, which has spent years at the center of the regulatory conversation, could benefit more than almost any other major digital asset. You can already feel the energy building across the XRP community. Social media is filled with discussions about what this could mean for the future price of XRP. Some investors believe institutional money could flood into the market once clarity arrives. Others believe Ripple's position in global finance could become even stronger if legal uncertainty disappears completely. There are also growing discussions about whether banks that were waiting on the sidelines may finally feel comfortable working more closely with Ripple and XRP related systems. Even people who stopped paying attention to XRP are starting to look back at it because the idea of regulatory clarity changes the entire conversation. What makes this situation even more interesting is the timing. The crypto market as a whole is entering a new phase where governments around the world are trying to decide how digital assets will fit into the future financial system. Some countries are moving faster than others, but the United States remains one of the most important markets in the world. If America finally moves toward clearer crypto laws, the impact could spread across the entire industry almost immediately. XRP holders understand this very well because they have spent years believing that once the regulatory pressure lifts, XRP could finally show what it is capable of doing in the global financial system. At the same time, experienced investors know that excitement alone is not enough. Markets are emotional and headlines can create huge reactions very quickly. That is why many XRP holders are watching carefully to see whether these developments turn into actual legal progress. Still, there is no denying that something feels different right now. The level of discussion, the growing political attention, and the increasing focus on crypto regulation are creating a level of momentum that XRP investors have not felt in a very long time. And if this momentum continues building, the next phase for XRP could look completely different from anything we have seen before. One of the biggest reasons XRP holders are reacting so strongly to the latest Clarity Act discussions is because many people believe XRP has already survived the hardest part of its journey. For years, the XRP community dealt with fear, uncertainty, lawsuits, exchange delistings, and nonstop criticism from people who believed Ripple would never recover from the SEC battle. There were moments when confidence across the market looked completely broken, and many investors started leaving because they thought the pressure would never end. But despite all of that, XRP continued surviving. Ripple continued expanding globally, partnerships continued growing outside the United States, and the community remained one of the strongest in crypto. That resilience is exactly why many holders now believe XRP is in a unique position if regulatory clarity finally arrives. The important thing to understand is that institutional money usually waits for safety before entering any market in a major way. Large financial companies are not emotional traders chasing hype on social media. They care about legal certainty, compliance, and risk management. Even if they believe blockchain technology is the future, they will hesitate if regulators are unclear about how digital assets should operate. This is one of the main reasons why crypto adoption in traditional finance has moved slower than many people expected. The technology exists, the demand exists, and the global payment problems still exist, but the legal framework has remained uncertain. If the Clarity Act truly creates stronger definitions and rules around crypto assets, institutions could finally begin participating with much greater confidence. For XRP, this could be extremely important because Ripple has spent years positioning itself as a company focused on real financial infrastructure rather than speculation alone. Ripple has always talked about solving cross border payment inefficiencies, helping banks move funds faster, and improving global liquidity systems. That vision becomes much more powerful in a world where regulators finally provide clear rules. Suddenly, conversations about XRP move away from legal uncertainty and back toward utility, adoption, and real world financial use cases. That shift in narrative alone could dramatically change how investors, banks, and financial companies look at XRP moving forward. Another reason excitement is growing is because many people believe XRP has been heavily undervalued compared to its long term potential. While other cryptocurrencies experienced massive hype cycles over the past few years, XRP often moved under a cloud of legal uncertainty. Many investors believe that pressure prevented XRP from reaching levels it could have achieved under normal market conditions. Now, people are starting to ask a serious question. What happens if that pressure finally disappears? What happens if institutions that avoided XRP because of regulation suddenly become interested again? What happens if banks and payment providers see a safer legal environment for blockchain based settlement systems? These questions are fueling enormous speculation inside the crypto community. Some investors believe XRP could experience one of the strongest catch up rallies in the market if clarity arrives because the asset has spent years fighting legal limitations while still maintaining a massive global following. Others believe Ripple's international partnerships could become even more valuable once the United States creates a clearer framework for digital assets. There are even discussions about whether XRP could eventually become part of larger financial systems involving tokenized assets, central bank digital currencies, and global liquidity networks. What makes this situation even more emotional for longtime holders is the feeling that patience may finally be paying off. Many XRP investors held through years of negativity while being mocked by critics who claimed the project was finished. They watched other cryptocurrencies dominate headlines while XRP remained trapped in legal uncertainty. Yet, despite all of that, the community stayed active, continued researching developments, and continued believing that regulatory clarity would eventually change everything. Now, with the Clarity Act discussions gaining momentum, many holders feel like they are watching the beginning of the moment they waited years to see. At the same time, there is also caution in the market because experienced investors understand that political processes can move slowly. Bills, regulations, and legal frameworks often take time before becoming final. Markets also tend to overreact very quickly to headlines, especially in crypto, where emotions drive much of the price action. That means XRP holders are balancing excitement with realism. Many people are optimistic, but they also understand that nothing is guaranteed until official action takes place. Even so, the fact that crypto regulation is finally becoming a major national conversation is already significant because it shows that digital assets are being taken more seriously than before. Another important factor is global competition. The United States knows that blockchain innovation is growing worldwide. Other countries are already creating crypto frameworks and attracting blockchain companies. If America wants to remain competitive in financial technology, many lawmakers understand they cannot ignore digital assets forever. This creates additional pressure for clearer regulation, and that is one reason why many investors believe the environment is becoming more favorable for crypto overall. XRP holders see this as a major opportunity because Ripple has already built international relationships and infrastructure while waiting for regulatory clarity to improve in the United States. Right now, the market feels like it is standing at a crossroads. On one side is the old world of uncertainty, lawsuits, and hesitation. On the other side is the possibility of a more structured and regulated crypto environment where institutional adoption becomes easier and blockchain companies can operate with confidence. XRP holders believe their asset could become one of the biggest winners if that transition finally happens, because XRP has already spent years preparing for a future where utility matters more than hype alone. As the Clarity Act discussion continues gaining attention, many XRP holders are now starting to think beyond just short term price action and focusing instead on what this could mean for the long term future of XRP inside the global financial system. This is where the conversation becomes even more serious because the real value of XRP has always been connected to utility, speed, liquidity, and the possibility of transforming how money moves across borders. While many cryptocurrencies depend mainly on hype cycles and social media momentum, XRP supporters have consistently argued that Ripple's technology was built for a much larger purpose involving real financial infrastructure. The current global payment system still faces many problems that banks and financial institutions deal with every single day. International transfers can take several days to settle, fees can become expensive, and liquidity management across different currencies remains inefficient. Ripple has spent years trying to solve these issues through blockchain based payment systems that allow faster and cheaper movement of money across borders. XRP plays an important role in that vision because it can act as a bridge asset between currencies, helping transactions settle almost instantly instead of waiting through outdated banking processes. This is one reason why regulatory clarity matters so much. If governments and regulators finally provide clear rules around digital assets, financial institutions may feel more comfortable exploring blockchain solutions at a much larger scale. Banks do not want to operate in legal gray areas. They want certainty before committing to major technological changes. That is why many XRP investors believe the Clarity Act could unlock opportunities that have remained frozen for years. Once companies know the rules, they can finally focus fully on innovation and adoption instead of constantly worrying about enforcement actions or regulatory confusion. Another reason people are paying close attention is because XRP has remained one of the most talked about cryptocurrencies despite years of legal pressure. Most projects would have struggled to survive under the same conditions, but XRP maintained a loyal global community and continued ranking among the major digital assets in the market. Many investors see that survival as proof of strength. They believe XRP already passed one of the toughest tests any crypto project could face, and if clarity finally arrives, the market may begin reevaluating XRP's position very quickly. You can already see growing discussions about institutional adoption returning to XRP in a major way. Some analysts believe that if the legal environment improves, exchanges, payment providers, and financial firms could expand XRP related services much more aggressively. Others believe large investment firms may become more interested in XRP exposure once regulatory fears decrease. Even the possibility of these developments creates excitement because institutional participation often brings massive liquidity and credibility into financial markets. At the same time, many XRP holders are also thinking about the psychological impact of regulatory clarity. For years, the narrative surrounding XRP has been dominated by lawsuits, SEC headlines, and uncertainty. That negative narrative affected investor confidence even during strong market conditions. But narratives can change very quickly in crypto. If XRP begins becoming associated with compliance, utility, institutional adoption, and legal clarity instead of regulatory battles, the market perception around XRP could shift dramatically. Sometimes market sentiment alone can create powerful momentum because investors start seeing the asset through a completely different lens. Another major factor fueling optimism is the broader movement happening across the digital asset industry. Around the world, governments and financial institutions are increasingly exploring tokenization, blockchain payments, and digital financial infrastructure. Major banks are studying blockchain systems. Central banks are experimenting with digital currencies. Financial companies are investing billions into blockchain research and development. This global trend suggests that blockchain technology is becoming more integrated into the future of finance, not less. XRP holders believe Ripple has positioned itself directly in the middle of that transformation. Many people inside the community also point to Ripple's international growth over the past few years. Even while facing legal uncertainty in the United States, Ripple continued expanding partnerships in regions where regulators provided clearer guidance. That international expansion demonstrated that demand for blockchain payment technology still exists globally. If the United States finally moves toward clearer crypto laws through efforts like the Clarity Act, Ripple could potentially strengthen its position both internationally and domestically at the same time. That possibility is one of the biggest reasons why excitement continues building. Still, experienced investors understand that markets rarely move in straight lines. Even bullish developments can create volatility because traders react emotionally to news and speculation. Some investors may expect instant price explosions, while others remain cautious until they see official legal outcomes and long term adoption data. That difference in expectations often creates huge swings in crypto markets. XRP holders know this very well because they have experienced years of dramatic highs and lows already. But despite the uncertainty, one thing is becoming increasingly clear. The conversation around XRP is changing. Instead of only focusing on legal battles, more people are beginning to talk again about XRP's potential role in global finance, institutional payments, and cross border liquidity systems. That shift alone is significant because it moves attention back toward utility and real world application. And if the Clarity Act truly helps create a more stable environment for crypto innovation in the United States, XRP could find itself entering one of the most important periods in its entire history. What makes this moment feel so important for XRP holders is the idea that the market may finally be approaching the end of a long period of uncertainty that held the asset back for years. In crypto, timing changes everything. Sometimes an asset can have strong technology, real world utility, and a loyal community, but if the market environment is not ready, growth remains limited. Many XRP investors believe that is exactly what happened over the past several years. Ripple continued building, expanding internationally, and developing payment solutions, but regulatory uncertainty in the United States constantly slowed momentum. Now, with growing discussions around the Clarity Act and clearer crypto rules, many holders feel like the environment itself could finally be changing in XRP's favor. One of the most powerful things in financial markets is confidence. When investors believe risk is decreasing and opportunity is increasing, capital starts moving quickly. That is why the possibility of regulatory clarity has created so much excitement across the XRP community. For years, institutions and large financial companies remained cautious because they did not want exposure to assets surrounded by legal confusion. Even companies interested in blockchain innovation often chose to wait rather than take unnecessary regulatory risks. But if lawmakers create a more defined framework for digital assets, that hesitation could begin disappearing. This is where XRP supporters believe Ripple may have a major advantage. Ripple already spent years working with payment companies, financial institutions, and regulators around the world. The company focused heavily on compliance and enterprise level solutions, while many crypto projects focused mainly on speculation. That difference matters because institutional adoption depends on trust, reliability, and legal certainty. If the market enters a new phase where utility and regulation become more important than hype, XRP could suddenly look much stronger compared to how it was viewed during previous market cycles. There is also growing speculation about how quickly sentiment could shift if regulatory clarity becomes reality. Crypto markets often move ahead of official developments because investors try to position themselves before major adoption happens. That means even small signs of positive legal progress can create strong reactions in price and market sentiment. XRP holders have already seen moments where positive legal updates triggered explosive rallies in a very short period of time. Now, many people are wondering what could happen if broader crypto legislation finally supports clearer rules across the industry. Some investors believe the impact could go far beyond just price action. They think clearer regulation could open the door for deeper integration between traditional finance and blockchain systems. That includes faster international settlements, tokenized financial assets, liquidity management solutions, and more efficient global payment networks. XRP supporters often argue that Ripple has been preparing for this type of financial future for years. They believe the company's focus on cross border payments and institutional infrastructure could become much more valuable in a world where blockchain adoption enters mainstream finance. At the same time, the emotional side of this moment cannot be ignored. Many XRP holders stayed committed during some of the most difficult periods in crypto history. They watched exchanges delist XRP, saw constant negative headlines, and experienced years of uncertainty that tested investor confidence. Yet, despite all of that pressure, the community continued believing that clarity would eventually arrive. That is why current discussions around the Clarity Act feel personal to many investors because it represents more than regulation alone. For many people, it represents validation after years of patience and belief. Social media reactions are already showing how emotional this moment has become. Everywhere across the crypto space, people are debating whether XRP is finally entering a new era. Some investors are extremely bullish and believe regulatory clarity could trigger institutional demand on a level the market has never seen before. Others remain more cautious and argue that adoption still takes time, even with positive regulation. Both perspectives matter because crypto markets are driven by a combination of expectation, speculation, and real world development. But no matter which side investors take, almost everyone agrees that clearer crypto laws would change the industry dramatically. Another major factor is the growing realization that governments can no longer ignore blockchain technology. Around the world, digital finance is evolving rapidly. Central banks are studying digital currencies, financial institutions are investing in blockchain infrastructure, and tokenization is becoming a serious topic across global markets. The United States understands that innovation is moving forward whether regulators act or not. This creates pressure for lawmakers to provide clearer rules that allow innovation while still protecting consumers and financial stability. For XRP holders, that global shift creates a sense that the bigger picture may finally be aligning. Ripple already built international relationships. Blockchain adoption continues growing worldwide, and regulatory discussions are becoming more serious than ever before. If these trends continue moving in the same direction, many investors believe XRP could become one of the biggest beneficiaries of the next phase of crypto adoption. Still, smart investors understand the importance of patience. Markets can become overly emotional during major news cycles, and expectations can sometimes move ahead of reality. That is why many experienced holders are watching carefully rather than blindly chasing hype. But even with that caution, there is a feeling spreading throughout the XRP community that something important is happening right now. The conversation is changing, the momentum is building, and for the first time in a long time, many XRP holders truly believe the future may finally be turning in their favor. As the crypto world continues watching every development surrounding the Clarity Act, one thing is becoming impossible to ignore. XRP is once again at the center of one of the biggest conversations in the digital asset industry. For years, people debated whether Ripple and XRP could survive the pressure of regulation, lawsuits, market fear, and nonstop criticism. Yet, despite everything that happened, XRP remained standing, the community remained active, and Ripple continued building its global presence. Now, many investors believe the market could finally be approaching the moment where all those years of patience begin leading towards something much bigger. The reason this moment feels different is because the entire financial world is changing at the same time. Blockchain technology is no longer viewed as just a niche experiment for crypto traders. Governments, banks, payment providers, and major financial institutions are all exploring how digital assets and blockchain systems can improve global finance. Faster transactions, lower costs, instant settlements, and tokenized assets are becoming serious topics in boardrooms around the world. That shift creates an environment where projects focused on real utility may become more important than ever before. XRP supporters believe Ripple positioned itself for exactly this kind of future. While many crypto projects focus mainly on hype cycles, Ripple concentrated heavily on financial infrastructure, cross border payments, and institutional partnerships. That strategy may not have created the same short term excitement as meme driven markets, but many investors now believe it could become extremely valuable if regulation finally supports broader adoption. The Clarity Act represents more than politics for the XRP community. It represents the possibility of a stable environment where companies can innovate, institutions can participate, and blockchain technology can grow without constant legal uncertainty. At the same time, many investors are beginning to realize how much market psychology could change if clarity becomes reality. For years, XRP carried the weight of regulatory fear. Even positive developments were often overshadowed by legal concerns and negative headlines. But if the narrative changes from uncertainty to compliance and adoption, the market could start valuing XRP very differently. In crypto, perception matters almost as much as technology because investor confidence drives momentum. Once confidence returns, market reactions can happen extremely fast.